Welcome to a special and an exciting episode. Today, we're not talking about one movie, but instead an entire quadrilogy that ends in 1970. So the 1970 movie we're going to talk about today is Beast of Blood. Beast of Blood was directed by Eddie Romero. Eddie Romero is a Filipino director, and if we go back all the way to 1959, Eddie Romero produced a movie with director Gerardo de Leon. These two Filipino movie makers are very important. First of all, they made what I could find to be as the first Filipino horror movie ever, which is Terror is a Man. Terror is a Man, directed by Gerardo de Leon and produced by Eddie Romero, is a movie loosely based off of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is written by H.G. Wells. Let's see if we can get that up here. Alright, there's a picture of The Island of Dr. Moreau. That's the original copy from when it came out. This book is about a man who gets shipwrecked and lost on an island, washes up on an island where there's a mad doctor there, and he is making human-animal hybrids. Okay? So, if we go back to Terror is a Man, we have basically that same plot. A man from the United States washes up on an island, and in the movie, it is Blood Island, which they describe as being 1,000 miles off the coast of Peru. Now, in reality, it was in the Philippines. Okay? They don't talk too much about the island in Terror is a Man, but the movie itself is not super great. It has good acting. The story, is lifted from a classic book, so it's fine. We have a mad doctor, and he has he's taken a panther, and he's done experiments on the panther, and turning the panther into a man. It's weird because it doesn't seem to be a hybrid. It seems like he's just doing surgeries on it because the thing is all wrapped up in bandages for the entire movie. It almost looks like a mummy. But it gets the bandages taken off its head, and unlike in this picture, it has big cat ears, and it's like a panther. The panther is an animal that's been experimented on and basically tortured, so it kills some people. And that's basically that whole movie. Not super great, but for 1959, not bad. It's all right. Terror is a Man gets 6 out of 10. Now, moving forward 9 years, we get this piece of work, which is Brides of Blood. This time it's directed by both Eddie Romero and Gerardo de Leon together. Brides of Blood is, I want to say it's great because I liked it so much, although there are a lot of problems with it. It's good. Let's take a look at this poster. Brides of Blood. Lusting for women, it terrified the land. Starring John Ashley and Ken Taylor. See the incredible creature. See trees that eat human flesh. See the butterfly that attacks man. That part was funny. See the pagan rites. See Carla, the girl who would love anyone. See beautiful girls sacrificed to the thing in blood-curdling color. Now, like I mentioned before, another movie that's in color with a black and white poster. Not sure why they keep doing this. Anyway, right on the poster you have an actual photograph of a naked woman tied to some sticks. So you know this one's going to be serious. Also, take a look at this image up here. This is a monster ripping off a woman's arm right on the poster, a naked woman's arm. Now, this movie is very exciting. We could compare it to the other 1970 movies because it's better than most of them. It is much more exciting than most of typical movies of 1970 and before. Unfortunately, the monster, the main monster, which you see on the poster, it is crudely drawn there on the poster, and in the movie he's pretty crudely made. It looks like a heap of trash with like limbs and a face, and it also looks like it's made out of paper mache, but It's cool, though. The other thing that's cool is, well, there's a lot of cool things about this, but the basic premise of this movie is Americans come to Blood Island, the same fictional island from Terror is a Man, and this time, they come and they discover that the natives of the island, which are all Filipino people, are afraid of this beast that comes, and it can only be satisfied when given women to rape and then tear apart. So the movie is women being sacrificed to this monster. The women are naked. They're getting torn apart by the monster. You don't see too much of the tearing apart, probably because the special effects weren't quite there yet. But you do have trees, as mentioned on the poster, that move around, and the moving trees look awesome. They grab people, they hit people. They're still rooted into the ground, but all the branches and limbs move around, and it was so cool looking. The acting isn't super great, but it's just really exciting. So it's a fun movie and a great movie. This one gets 7 out of 10. Now, the one major problem with this movie that impedes it from getting a higher rating is the fact that for some reason they shot all the scenes. When they shot the scenes, they didn't seem to care if they were shooting at night or during the day. So there's some scenes where the characters say it's nighttime and you can hear crickets, loud crickets in the scene, and yet it is bright out. And the sun is clearly shining in the faces of the actors. Then there's other times when it's supposed to be daytime and it's pitch black. And there's some scenes where when the camera is focused on one character, it's pitch black, and when the camera goes to another character that's speaking, it's bright. And it goes back and forth, so it's bright and dark in the same scene, and it's either supposed to be night or supposed to be day. And it makes the whole thing look really, really amateurish, and it's unfortunate because the movie is so cool. So between that and the fact that the acting isn't great and the fact that the monster looks like it's made out of paper mache, I can't give it higher than a 7 out of 10. But it gets a 10 out of 10 for heart. Okay, it's what I want to see in a horror movie. Multiple different types of monsters, crazy violence, and just craziness happening for the entire movie instead of just at the end, which is what we get in a lot of movies at the time. So, and one more thing I want to talk about. If you went to see this movie and you were female, you would be given a ring so that you could become a bride of blood. So I like that gimmick. Actually, I forgot to mention the gimmick for Terror is a Man. But in Terror is a Man, there's this one scene where there's surgery is done on a monster. And in reality, it looks like they used like a piece of pork or something like that. But when they do the surgery, it's like a little bit shocking. And I guess if you saw the movie in the drive-in or in the theater at the time, they would ring a bell right before the surgery scene so everyone could close their eyes. And then they would ring it again when the surgery scene was over so that people could open their eyes for the rest of the movie, because none of the rest of it's really that shocking. Somebody gets slashed by the panther's paw, but it's not really that big of a deal. Now, after Brides of Blood did very well, even in America, even though it was a Filipino/American production, but it was all made in the Philippines by Filipino directors. John Ashley, I don't know if he actually helped produce this one or if he didn't start producing until the next one, but John Ashley is like the main American involved here, but most of the rest of it are Filipino. There's a couple American actors. Anyway, it did well in the United States. It's being put out by Hemisphere. That's the production company, and the distributor, I believe that is an American, yes, it's an American company based out of New York City, even though it's a Filipino movie. So anyway, after that one did well, we get The Mad Doctor of Blood Island. Now, if I read correctly, this was the most popular of all the Blood Island movies. Look at that poster. That is an image from the actual movie. Let's take a look at, let's see if I can zoom in. Look at that. This monster looks great. He looks great in the movie. He looks great on the poster. Okay? This movie is beyond anything that we have seen so far as monster design, makeup effects go. This movie, it's got John Ashley again, but this time John Ashley is not just an American guy who's showing up. He's a doctor. And he comes to Blood Island, and he finds out that there is a creature on Blood Island referred to as the chlorophyll monster. The chlorophyll monster it behaves like a zombie, but he's got plants growing out of him. This monster is so cool. I think it is the coolest looking monster from 1969 or before that I've seen. He looks disgusting. Also, you get the idea in the movie that he's contagious, and there's these men. There are men running around the island that have like green stuff growing out of them, but they're not as advanced as this guy, so they all seem to be contaminated. The chlorophyll monster rips so many people apart in this movie. I think it's the goriest movie I've seen up to this point. Now, if you think of the goriest movies and the first really gory movie, Blood Feast, I don't know, maybe Blood Feast was gorier. I would have to watch it again because it's been a year or two since I've seen it. Just saw 2000 Maniacs, which is a splatter fest, but this is probably gorier than that. This has people's arms being flung around, heads being flung around, intestines ripped out. There's so much gore in this one. And the other thing is, unlike Herschel Gordon Lewis's movies, which are so gory, but in a light-hearted way, and it's kind of funny, this movie's not funny. This movie is, as serious as a monster movie can be. The tone of it is serious, and it makes it cooler. I like horror comedies, and sometimes I like them better than movies that take themselves too seriously. But the Mad Doctor here is like the perfect balance. So I give this one an 8 out of 10. The reason why it's not perfect, there's two reasons. One, they do that day-night thing again that the last one did, where sometimes it's day, sometimes it's night, sometimes in the same scene, and oftentimes contradicting what the characters are saying. The other problem is, and I don't know why they did this. I read a reason why, but it doesn't make sense. But it has probably the worst cinematography of any movie ever made. Many of the times that the monster appears, the zoom goes crazy. The zoom goes in and out as fast as a person could possibly do it. It almost ruins the movie. And a lot of reviews of the movie cite that zoom problem as why the movie is horrible. If you can just get past the zoom, which I know it's hard because it goes in and out, like it probably give you motion sickness or something, it goes so fast. But if you can get past the zoom and you ignore the fact that it's sometimes bright during the middle of the night, the movie is perfect other than that. The acting is a little better than the previous one, but the way the monster design is so good. It looks amazing. It looks disgusting. I watched it with my friend, and every time the monster came on, she was like, oh God, like she couldn't even look at it some of the time. Like it was so gross. There's plants growing out of him, his exposed bones, exposed skull. He's just tearing through people in this movie. It's so good. So that's the Mad Doctor of Blood Island, and I was so glad to find that the next year in 1970, they made another one. Let's see if I can get to it. I'm having trouble. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the Beast of Blood. Beast of Blood. This one is a direct sequel to The Mad Doctor of Blood Island, which is cool because the first three movies didn't have anything to do with each other except they were made by the same people in the same location and they all reference being on Blood Island. This one is a direct sequel to The Mad Doctor. If you look down here, it says GP, which I don't understand. I must have seen a different version because GP is the equivalent of PG, and this is a hard R. Like, I must have seen an unrated version actually because I think this even pushes the boundaries of a rated R movie. Just like The Mad Doctor of Blood Island, we have people being torn apart and all sorts of crazy stuff. It might not be quite as gory as The Mad Doctor, but it's still pretty serious. Now, you can see here on the poster that the chlorophyll monster is headless, sort of. He's holding up his own head. Well, this not only is it a sequel, but it takes place exactly at the point that the previous movie leaves off. In the previous movie, they finally had captured the chlorophyll monster and put him on a boat. And in the very last few seconds of that movie, you see that he's starting to make his way out of what he's been bound up in, which is like I think it's a lifeboat. They kind of tie him into a lifeboat. Well, the very beginning of this movie is him getting out of the lifeboat and just wrecking everyone on the ship. After he does that, he somehow gets back to land, and people get in his way, and he just beats them up and gets somewhere. So what happens is he's recaptured by the Mad Doctor, and this time the Mad Doctor conducts more experiments on him, lays him out, cuts his head off, keeps his head alive in one place and his body alive in another. Now, John Ashley, the Doctor, his boat is wrecked by the monster. He's picked up by another boat that contains a photographer, a female photographer, and then they go back to the Blood Island because I guess that's where they were going anyway. So this movie is great. No more stupid zoom. They've mostly corrected the night and day problem, so there's really nothing getting in the way. The only thing that makes this movie not perfect is that the chlorophyll monster, who we loved seeing tear everyone apart for the entirety of the previous movie, is stuck in a lab for almost the whole movie. So you still have a great plot. You have all sorts of different people that are infected and starting to turn into chlorophyll monsters. You have people getting shot, cut apart, beaten. There's enemies attacking the good guys from all different locations. You've got a Filipino woman save his ass a few times. She's got a machete and she's hacking people up. Everything is cool. Well, and then at the end of the movie, you get to see the chlorophyll monster speak, which was a surprise because he starts talking. He laughs, and it's like kind of creepy. He laughs at the Doctor when he gets up and attacks the Doctor, even though his head is stuck in a separate place than his body. So you get to see a really well done headless monster attack people. And the whole thing is great. So Beast of Blood gets 9 out of 10. It would have been a perfect 10 out of 10, except our favorite monster is stuck on an operating table for much of the movie. But this one gets 9 out of 10. I don't know if I said it, but Mad Doctor gets 8 out of 10. If it didn't have that zoom and the night and day problem, that would have been perfect. That's definitely the craziest one out of all these. So I'm very glad and very excited that I finally got to see a really cool movie from 1970, because if you've been watching all of these, a lot of them are pretty boring. This one is great. I would say it's definitely in the top 5, probably top 3 favorite horror movies of 1970 so far, and we are getting pretty deep into the year at this point. Definitely one of the top 3. I mean, sometimes when I think about it, I think it might be my favorite one. This one is great. I forgot to mention that on the second and third Blood Island movies, Eddie Romero and Gerardo De Leon worked together on them. And on this one, Eddie Romero took over completely. So he's doing this one all by himself. It is the best one out of all of them. It's really great. Eddie Romero went on to do more movies in the next couple of years, including The Beast of the Yellow Night, where John Ashley actually is the monster instead of a good guy human. And then he did, I think it's called Twilight People. So these are 1971, 1972. So we got at least 2 more horror movies to watch from him. I read something saying that Quentin Tarantino loves Twilight People, so I'm excited to watch that one. All made in the Philippines. Very cool, different flavor from all the American and British and Italian movies that we've been watching, and German and Spanish. After that, both Gerardo de Leon and Eddie Romero went over into the blaxploitation movies, where I think one of them did Women in Cages. One of them did Black Mama, White Mama. I think Eddie Romero did Black Mama, White Mama, and Gerardo de Leon did Women in Cages. I haven't watched those yet. Probably won't talk about them explicitly on here because I don't think they're horror movies, but they went on to make a bunch of wacky movies with crazy premises, and this is just really a lot of fun. I don't think I've spoiled anything for you, as the whole thing is seeing it with these movies, seeing the beautifully created, disgusting monsters, seeing the trees move around and grab people, seeing people get ripped apart. It doesn't matter if I say it. The fun is watching it happen. So all these movies are available on Amazon Prime Video at this time. If you have that, go watch them. Hopefully they don't get taken down before you get to see them, because these are a lot of fun. Highly recommended, especially the final 3. All right, take care. See you next time.